Hi, welcome. We're in Niederescher, and it's the 2015 travel event by Touratech. And we're here because we have the man who probably started it all, almost certainly actually. This is Ted Simon, who in 1974 went around the world in 4 years on a Triumph 500 and pretty much started the modern era of adventure motorcycling. So who better to just kick off the whole event with and see what it's about. Ted, was it a lifetime ago?
Yeah, well, it was 73, but never mind. What's a year? It did take 4 years. Of course, you make it sound as though I had this whole thing worked out ahead of time, but I had absolutely no idea that anything like this would happen. And to find myself here in this, at the heart of the empire, if you like, is very interesting. I've never been to a Touratech event before. I've been watching Touratech from the sidelines for a long time. I'm amazed at the way it's grown, just as I am really amazed at the number of people that I've probably sent to their death, and and even more those that have survived to tell the tale. It's a very strange thing that it took a book to do that. I'm certainly not claiming credit for everybody who went adventuring. I think adventure is in the nature of people, and so I'm trying to be modest about it, but I do get a huge number of emails almost all the time, and have done for the last 40 years, saying that I've done something to change people's lives, and that's a very extraordinary thing to live with, and I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how it's gone. However, one of the things that fascinates me, and we were talking about this earlier, is the way Herbert Schwartz managed to grab hold of this whole adventure syndrome and turn it into an amazing, as I said, an amazing empire of things that people seem to find almost essential. In a sense, I'm a bit kind of outside that, since I had none of this stuff when I went off. I know that it's perfectly possible to have a decent adventure without any of it. Yeah. So there's always been this difficulty that I've had of should I be part of it? Should I be against it? Should I be outside it? What's the position that I take? But I'm full of admiration. I mean, undoubtedly, when I was traveling, it occurred to me, as I was trying to invent the very things that Herbert Schwartz is now selling, just for myself alone, I was thinking, my goodness, you know, there's so much that one could do, so many things one could make. It's a tremendous opportunity. But, you know, I'm a writer, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a businessman, and so it was for somebody like Herbert to do it. But I'm full of admiration for what he's done.
Ted, also, you've hit upon something there. You and Herbert have both, you know, been inspired by riding around the world, seeing places, and in your own way, you made quite a lot of your own equipment for that. Herbert made his own, and obviously he's generated Touratech from that start point. But for you, is there a commonality between you and Herbert in sort of ideologies or anything? Do you see something there, or is it something that might have been something you might have done back in the day? As you say, you're a journalist, you're not a businessman. You know, where do you come from with that?
I mean, we all have multiple possibilities in our lives, and I think we just choose the ones that, if we're lucky, we choose the ones that suit us best, that bring out the best in us creatively and in terms of our own satisfaction and so on. So I'm not at all envious of Herbert, and I think that we do both come from the same general place, that we love the world. We love the idea of people going around it or into it, or any way you like to think of it. And I've tried to do it by making some kind of by giving people some inspiration to do it, and Herbert does it by giving them the means with which to do it. So, you know, we're pretty much on the same side. There's no question about that.
So Ted, another question for you. We have generations that have been inspired by you, but who inspired you? You know, where did that 1973 trip come from? Where did you start?
Well, I can't think of anybody except my father, and since I never knew him really, he's going to have to take credit for it in absentia. He was a wandering Jew. I suppose that's the only thing you could say about him. My mother was a wandering Prussian, but I don't think travel was really in her blood. And but he had certainly wandered around quite a lot in the Middle East before he came to England. and so you know, if there is a genetic ingredient, it would probably come from him. But there really isn't anybody I could otherwise say. If I have heroes at all, they're much more likely to be literary than motorcyclists.
Yeah. And Ted, you could have travelled the world any which way, train, plane, automobile, that sort of thing. You chose the motorbike. And again, this is a period when we hadn't seen motorbike travel on this nature. Again, why did you choose the motorbike? You know, where did that come from?
Well, that's really interesting, and I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I knew nothing about motorcycles. I'd never ridden one when I decided to do this. I did for a moment or two think about a donkey. I thought it would, and I still think going around the world on a donkey would be a wonderful thing to do, but it does involve a lot of questions that I don't know how you would answer them. I think there's a lot more petrol than there is grass in the world, but it just came to me out of the blue, literally out of the blue, that a motorcycle seemed to me to be a perfect vehicle for doing it. And even now I can't really think of a better one. I mean, it's cheap, it's flexible. It should be cheap anyway. It's flexible. You can cart it around. You know, you can put it on trucks and on boats, and you can take it apart and put it together again. And you sit on it and not in it, and you can smell things and you can see things, and you can attract attention, which is the other great thing, and that's. And that's where you know, when I went round the world the second time, I realized what a terrible disservice I'd done to myself, because I kept meeting other people on motorcycles, and there were so many of them that nobody was paying any attention anymore. So I lost one of the great advantages of doing it on a bike, which was that everybody thought, "My God, what's this coming along? Well, you've got to talk to him, so give him a bed for the night." That wasn't happening. But again, I think one of the problems, if I do have any problems with, not so much with Touratech, it's probably more with BMW, it's that there are so many people going out there in uniform that I feel they do themselves down by just looking like another fully kitted, ice-cold road warrior, wearing all the right boots and having all the right shine and so on. And I think that's a pity. I think they'd do better if they were wearing an old bomber jacket and just had old suitcases tied to their machine. But you know, that's another matter. Making contact with people as you travel is, I think, one of the main things about travel. And so anything you can do to sort yourself out from the herd and look different, you know. I think Herbert ought to think about putting out boxes nicely disguised with ragged old bearskin covers on them so that they look like something ratty. Yeah.
Excellent. I guess one more question, Ted. Can't resist. You'd started your trip probably, if you like, at the half-life time, at 40 years or so. In the 1970s, there were troubling times. There were a lot of wars going on, a lot of issues, and it was a generation that started questioning values rather than accepting them and fighting for them, saying, what should we do? Do you think, if you reflect on the Ted Simon that you were then and the Ted Simon you are now, what kind of a dialogue would there be between the two of you if you met right now?
Well, that's an interesting way of putting something that I've often thought about, which is that I certainly had the feeling at that time that the human race was capable of handling the problems that were arising, even though they were exactly the same problems that we have today of pollution and population growth and terrorism. All those things were really big problems at the time. But there was a sense of innocence about it all, that you thought, well, these are things we can deal with. We just need to expand our reach a bit further from, the West can start to help ease the problems of the other parts of the world. And I think I would be saying to myself, what a naive fool you were, to think that the human race is actually capable of reforming itself in that way. And it's very sad that I love life, I love the world, I think everybody on it could have a marvelous life, but I think things on the whole are going to hell in a handcart, and I don't feel that sense of optimism and innocence anymore. But I'm trying to do my best with what I have to persuade people to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's fine, Ted. So thanks for that, and we'll have some more interviews later.